Michael Jackson. At the end of his life, Michael Jackson was trapped by an invisible but central problem: chronic insomnia. For years, sleeping naturally had become nearly impossible. The physical toll of decades of touring, medical procedures, constant anxiety, and relentless media pressure had profoundly disrupted his biological rhythm. As the This Is It tour approached, intended to mark his major comeback, this fragility reached a critical point. Jackson rehearsed intensively, sometimes to the point of complete exhaustion. His body was weakened, his diet irregular, and sleep remained inaccessible despite the use of many conventional sleeping medications. Benzodiazepines and other sedatives no longer produced the desired effect. Tolerance had set in. In this context, his personal physician, Conrad Murray, made an extremely risky medical decision, using propofol as a sleep aid. Propofol is not a harmless drug. It is a powerful anesthetic used in hospital settings to induce deep sedation, typically before surgical procedures. Its use requires constant monitoring, cardiac surveillance, and immediate access to resuscitation equipment. In Michael Jackson's case, it was administered at home, at night, without a secure hospital environment. On the night of June 24th to 25th, 2009, Jackson received an injection of propofol combined with several benzodiazepines. Shortly afterward, he fell asleep. At an undetermined moment, his breathing slowed and then stopped. Propofol suppresses the respiratory reflex, a well-documented effect of the drug. Without proper monitoring, hypoxia set in rapidly. On the morning of June 25th, Michael Jackson was found unconscious. Resuscitation attempts were late and unsuccessful. He was pronounced dead at the hospital at the age of 50. The announcement triggered a global shock. The autopsy was unequivocal. The cause of death was acute propofol intoxication with the concomitant presence of benzodiazepines. The report stated that propofol was a decisive factor in the cardiorespiratory arrest. The death was officially classified as homicide, not due to criminal intent, but because of inappropriate and dangerous medical use. The trial of Conrad Murray revealed a chilling reality. Michael Jackson was not seeking euphoria or escapism. He was simply trying to sleep. Propofol had become an extreme solution to a common but uncontrollable problem. Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to prison. Michael Jackson's death highlighted a rarely discussed danger: medical overdoses, legal in appearance, yet deadly when used outside their intended framework. This was not a street overdose, but a failure of the medical system surrounding a celebrity unable to stop, and surrounded by professionals who had abandoned their limits. Amy Winehouse. Amy Winehouse became globally famous for her unique voice and deeply personal lyrics. Alongside her success, she fought a constant battle with addiction, primarily alcohol. Contrary to popular belief, the final stage of her life was not marked by continuous, uncontrolled use, but by a dangerous alternation between abstinence and relapse. In the years before her death, Winehouse experienced multiple hospitalizations and detox attempts. Doctors repeatedly emphasized the fragility of her body, weakened by years of heavy drinking. Her liver, nervous system, and metabolic balance were severely compromised. Despite this, she attempted to rebuild stability, achieving periods of sobriety of varying lengths. In 2011, she went through a relatively strict abstinence phase. Her entourage reported that she drastically reduced or completely stopped drinking. Medically, the situation is extremely risky. After a period of abstinence, alcohol tolerance drops sharply. An amount once tolerated can suddenly become fatal. On July 23, 2011, Amy Winehouse was found dead in her Camden home in London. She was 27 years old. There were no signs of struggle, trauma, or illicit drug use. The investigation quickly focused on a toxicological cause. The toxicology report was clear. She died from acute alcohol poisoning. Her blood alcohol level was extremely high, well above the threshold considered potentially fatal. Experts concluded that her body, fragilized by years of abuse and recent abstinence, was unable to metabolize such an amount. The mechanism of death is well documented. High alcohol levels depress the central nervous system. Breathing slows, awareness disappears, and coma sets in. In extreme cases, alcohol causes respiratory failure or cardiac collapse. In Winehouse's case, these effects were amplified by her already critical physical condition. Her death was not caused by a mixture of drugs, nor by illegal substances. Alcohol alone was sufficient, a sobering reminder that a socially accepted substance can be lethal without margin for error. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston long embodied vocal perfection. But behind her exceptional career was a prolonged struggle with addiction, primarily to cocaine, which gradually deteriorated her health. From the late 1990s onward, those close to her and the media reported erratic behavior, repeated absences, and growing instability. Unlike a sudden overdose, Whitney's trajectory was one of slow decline, unfolding over many years. Cocaine acts as a powerful stimulant on the central nervous system. In the short term, it produces feelings of euphoria and energy. In the long term, it causes severe cardiovascular damage, including enlargement of the heart muscle, rhythm disorders, and coronary spasms. In Whitney Houston's case, chronic cocaine use progressively weakened her heart without triggering an immediately fatal event until the breaking point. On February 11th, 2012, Whitney Houston was staying at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills during Grammy Awards weekend. She was last seen alive in the afternoon. In the early evening, her personal assistant found her unconscious in the bathtub of her hotel room. Emergency services were called immediately, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. She was 48 years old. The autopsy concluded that the cause of death was accidental drowning. However, the report specified that the drowning occurred in the context of severe heart disease and chronic cocaine use. Traces of cocaine and its metabolites were found in her system, confirming recent consumption. The mechanism is now well documented in forensic medicine. Cocaine can cause sudden cardiac arrhythmia or abrupt loss of consciousness. In Whitney Houston's case, experts believe that a cardiac episode or syncope likely occurred while she was in the bathtub. Once unconscious, she was unable to sit up or remove herself from the water, making drowning inevitable. It is important to note that the amount of water in the bathtub was not unusual. Without the pre-existing cardiac fragility, the accident might have been survivable. It was not the physical circumstances that caused her death, but a body profoundly weakened by years of substance use. Whitney Houston did not die from a classic overdose. She died from an indirect complication, the cumulative consequence of long-term addiction. Her death illustrates a lesser-known reality. Some drugs do not kill instantly, but weaken the body until an ordinary situation becomes fatal. Prince Rogers Nelson. Prince Rogers Nelson always cultivated an image of total control over his music, his image, and his privacy. Yet in the final years of his life, this facade concealed a more fragile reality. Behind the explosive energy of his performances was a body worn down by decades of intense physical exertion, jumping, demanding choreography, and endless concerts. This gradual wear manifested as chronic pain, particularly in his hips, suspected to be linked to bone necrosis or repeated microtrauma. To continue performing, Prince began using opioid painkillers. Unlike many other artists, he never publicly presented himself as dependent. Those close to him described a discreet man who suffered in silence, often refusing official medical help. This discretion helped mask the true extent of his consumption. On April 21st, 2016, Prince was found dead in an elevator at his Paisley Park complex in Minnesota. He was 57 years old. Emergency responders pronounced him dead at the scene. The medical investigation quickly focused on a pharmaceutical cause. The autopsy revealed that the cause of death was an accidental fentanyl overdose. Fentanyl is an extremely powerful synthetic opioid, up to 50 times stronger than heroin. It acts directly on the central nervous system by suppressing breathing. At even slightly excessive doses, it causes rapid respiratory failure, often fatal. The investigation uncovered a crucial detail. Prince did not know he was taking fentanyl. The pills found were counterfeit tablets, visually identical to common medications such as Vicodin. In reality, they contained pure fentanyl with no dosage control. A single pill was enough to cause respiratory arrest. Just days before his death, Prince had already suffered a medical emergency aboard a private plane, requiring urgent hospitalization. At that time, doctors administered naloxone, an opioid antidote, strongly suggesting a prior intoxication. Despite this warning, no long-term treatment plan was implemented. Experts concluded that Prince was not seeking euphoria or excess. He was simply trying to relieve persistent pain in order to keep creating and performing. His death illustrates a phenomenon that has become widespread: the extreme danger of synthetic opioids on the illicit market, where users often have no idea what substance they are actually ingesting. Prince did not die from a spectacularly self-destructive act. He died from an invisible mistake, from a deceptive pill in a world where the line between medicine and poison had completely disappeared. His death became one of the most powerful symbols of the opioid crisis in the United States, Mac Miller. Toward the end of his life, Mac Miller was widely seen as an artist in recovery. After years marked by dependence, he appeared more grounded, reflective, and creatively engaged. Yet beneath this apparent stability, his body remained deeply compromised by long-term substance use and exposed to a new threat: fentanyl contamination of the drug supply. Mac Miller had long used drugs intermittently, alternating between abstinence and relapse. He spoke openly about his struggles in interviews and music. Rather than constant excess, his profile fit that of a high-risk user, aware of danger, yet unable to fully escape it. On September 7th, 2018, Mac Miller was found dead at his Los Angeles home. He was 26 years old. Investigators quickly ruled out homicide and suicide. The evidence pointed to accidental overdose. The autopsy revealed fentanyl, cocaine, and alcohol in his system. Fentanyl was identified as the decisive factor. This synthetic opioid is extremely potent, capable of causing rapid respiratory depression even at very low doses. Unlike other opioids, it leaves virtually no margin for error. Investigators determined that Mac Miller did not know he was consuming fentanyl. The substances he purchased were presented as standard drugs or medications, but were counterfeit and contaminated, a common practice on the illicit market to artificially increase potency. Messages found on his phone showed he sought clean products, believing he was minimizing risk. In today's unregulated market, such precautions are often meaningless. A single misdosed pill can be fatal even for experienced users. The mechanism of death was rapid and silent. Fentanyl suppresses the brain's respiratory center. Breathing slows, becomes insufficient, and stops. Loss of consciousness occurs before any chance to seek help. Without immediate intervention, survival is unlikely. Mac Miller's death reflects a new reality of modern overdoses. The danger lies less in quantity than in unpredictability. Fentanyl has erased any reliable sense of tolerance or control. He did not die from deliberate excess. He died from an invisible error within a toxic market where the line between known drugs and pure poison no longer exists. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave your suggestions for the next video in the comments.